As we come together for this wonderful celebration, may the Lord be with you. Let us pray. God of our past and God of our future, as we stand before you on this day, we stand by no means of our own. You have brought us to this place and formed us as a community of learning with humility, of questioning with hope, of a brotherhood bound by our individual gifts and a gracious restlessness for what lies beyond this place. We thank you for these years through which you have formed us, challenged us, and made us one. We praise you for the relationships that make Salisbury a place where we learn in the classroom, on the field, in the dorm, at the table, and where through those lessons we have recognized the wisdom of the unknown, strength in admitting our weaknesses, the wealth that comes when we give ourselves away to one another. As these graduates embark on their journey, we pray for their voyage. Carry them by your spirit of life so that as they go from this place to encounter the challenges that face our world, they might find the creativity and the will to offer what they have learned here, to do justice, to love kindness, and to walk humbly with you. We pray that as you make their paths straight, that they might be wise in their curiosity, certain in their hope, strong in their humility, and generous in their gratitude. And rest in them the sure knowledge that this place, soon to be a memory, continues to hold a sacred place in its heart for each one, our sons, our brothers. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend Hall. Before I begin this morning, I'd like to acknowledge that our bagpiper, Mr. Lee Collins, is in his 25th year of leading our graduation procession, so I'd like to offer a great thanks. I'd also like to extend an apology. If anyone heard during the baccalaureate someone singing the wrong second verse of the Sarum hymn, that was me. I thought we were only singing verses 1 through 4. I got a look from my wife that was not good. Well, good morning and welcome. On behalf of the Salisbury School community, I'd like to extend a warm welcome to all parents, siblings, grandparents, and family who are present in the Centennial Quadrangle this morning for this closing moment of celebration for the class of 2015. I would also like to recognize members of the Salisbury Board of Trustees that are here, including our chairman, Mr. Michael Sylvester, class of 1959, and Mr. Dick Field, the vice chairman, who is also a member of the class of 1959. I want to tip my hat as well to the weather gods and have them keep with that breeze up that we just felt coming through. For great weather to host this grand occasion. I keep count, and over the last 24 years, we've been here for 23 of them, which is quite a record. Only one time have we been inside. I've probably jinxed next year, but hopefully not. You know, every year, I probably start out 10 days before graduation checking the Weather Channel, and 10 days ago, it was supposed to pour today, and I was really upset. And then slowly it changed and it changed and it changed, and this is what I hope for, although another cloud or two and maybe a little breeze would be even more perfect. As the boys know, we hold our school meetings right here, twice weekly, around these senior steps. And rain or shine, fall, winter, spring, we meet right out here. It is only when we think it's reckless to be out here, and it was reckless a couple of times this winter at 25 below, that we thought, well, maybe we'll move it inside. But I like to think that it's a symbol of toughness that we have our school meetings outside, and so it's very apropos that we're sitting right here today, where we are here twice a week. But today is perfect. Today is not reckless. Today is absolutely perfect, and I like to think that the sun always shines on a Salisbury School graduation. So here we are, once again, gathered on the last Friday in May, celebrating another tremendous class of Salisbury graduates. As Reverend Hall said, our boys, our sons, the class of 2015, this is an incredibly joyous moment, boys. But I also will say it's a bit wistful as well, and we'll talk about that later. To all the parents who are in attendance, I can only imagine the pride that you feel today. This is such a great moment for you all, a seminal moment for you and your son. Please know that we deeply appreciate the sacrifices that you make to enable your boys to attend Salisbury. It is a huge financial investment for every family, but it may even be a greater emotional investment. It's not easy letting your teenage sons leave home and come to this hilltop. It's not easy to place your son in the care of somebody else. So on behalf of the entire faculty, I'd like to say thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to teach your sons, to care for your sons, to love your sons like they're our own. I often use the phrase our boys. It's intentional. You give us your sons for a pivotal time in their young lives, and it is a most precious gift, a most precious gift. So thank you. To my faculty and staff colleagues, thank you for giving your very best to the boys these years. You are the engine of Salisbury School. It is you individually and collectively who make us go. Famed Yankee slugger Reggie Jackson scandalously once said that he was the straw that stirred the drink for the mighty Yankees. Well, the truth is, with this faculty, everyone hits cleanup. Everyone. My father, a great teacher, coach, and schoolman, has always used the phrase, "Many hands make light work." That old adage is especially true in describing my Salisbury faculty colleagues and our faculty culture. And I'm very proud to have my father here today to witness this event. And finally, saving the very best for last, the soon-to-be graduates, you guys are the stars of today. This is your day, your time. These last few years of your life have been arduous at times, I'm sure, and challenging. There have been moments of pure joy and others, and I hope only a few, of bitter disappointment. But nonetheless, it's been a grand adventure, and no doubt you're better, stronger, and wiser for having made this journey. And today we gather together on the hilltop one final time to conclude your secondary school experience. Congratulations, boys, you've made it. Today marks the 114th graduation ceremony held on this hilltop since the Reverend George Emerson Quayle founded Salisbury School in 1901. And it is indeed a very special moment in each of your lives, as I just said, your graduation day, a moment that marks the transition from boyhood to manhood. It is a unique, once-in-a-lifetime moment, a day to remember always. In a few minutes, we will have the opportunity to hear from a noted speaker, Mr. Dan Kane, trustee and parent of Billy, who is a member of the graduating class today. It is a long-standing tradition to ask someone from the school's family to address the sixth form on their graduation day, and we are excited to have Mr. Kane as our guest. After this, we will hear from School President Duncan Morris, and I know that his recollections and prognostications of the future and the school will mark this day. And then, lads, it will be time to receive the symbol of your achievement, a crimson leather binder with a graduation certificate inside. And for those of you who are anxious, no worries, they're all signed. But before we turn to our noted speaker, I'd just like to share a few final thoughts with this group of boys seated before me, for they are indeed a very, very special group. Well, fellas, here we are, together one last time. It's been a long time since we began this journey together. For some of you, it started 4 years ago on a Sunday morning, September 12th, 2011. I can still see some of your 14, 15-year-old faces. Many of you were little kids. We talked that day about what it was like to be new in a place, and the difference between just being along for the ride and truly making a difference and taking advantage of a great experience. We talked about what it meant to be a great friend and why this brotherhood thing was so important, something that Reverend Hall just spoke about during the baccalaureate. Your class doubled in size the next year on September 11th, 2012 at our opening chapel. And on that day, we remembered and we bowed our heads in prayer and we talked about family and what it means to be a knight. Those of you who were there, do you remember? Do you remember me sharing that old English definition of knighthood? That it signified adolescence, specifically the period between childhood and manhood, and that the old English meaning of knight was servant? I trust that you'll take that with you, boys. The world needs men who seek to help. Great brothers, great sons, great fathers and husbands, giving members of communities, and dependable, thoughtful work colleagues. That's what is expected of you as a Salisbury gentleman. And then on September 10th, 2013, a handful more joined this band of brothers. You'd all grown a little brash and strong as teenagers in the preceding years. And on that day, I shared with you a story of a young American soldier from World War I, and the words that he had written in his diary, which guided his thoughts. Do you remember? I will work, I will save, I will sacrifice, and I will endure. I will fight cheerfully and do my utmost, as if the issue of the whole struggle depended on me alone. I can only conclude that you were listening because you sought to honor those words in your lives on this hilltop. And finally, on September 9th of this past fall, we sat together in the chapel, the beginning of your final year at Salisbury. And it was a beautiful day, much like today. Do you remember how you felt on that day? The theme that day was leading with your heart. And again, you listened because you have. Make a difference. Be a good friend. Be a gentleman. Be courageous and work hard, and lead with your heart. That's really it. I don't have much more. You do that, and you'll all be great. Great. Thank you for your love, your hard work, your partnership, your humor, your patience, and your exemplary character. I said this last night to a group of parents, and I'm not supposed to say this. Headmasters are like parents in that we're supposed to love all of our children and graduates equally and fully. But the truth is, you guys are special. In 24 years, I cannot remember a group of boys whom I've adored more than you. And I am thinking of your classmate today, Dana Sundell, who chose to leave Salisbury this winter to care for his dying mother. That's a knight, and he will forever be a member of this class. Trust that the light in the cupola that sits atop of Maine will shine brightly throughout your years and will lead you back to this hilltop. We will greet you warmly and openly as sons. Congratulations. Before I turn the podium over to our speakers, I want to heed tradition briefly and spend a few moments honoring and recognizing outstanding service of Salisbury School's faculty and staff members. This morning, it is a pleasure to acknowledge a number of colleagues who have reached milestones in their careers on the hilltop. Those members of our faculty and staff who are completing 5 years of service, please stand and be congratulated. 5 members of the faculty: Adam Bunce, Chris and Kim Phelps, Brian Finney, and James Simboli. Director of Health Services, Beth Vernally. 2 members of Salisbury's maintenance security staff, Jeff Celadon and Ned Corkery. And dining room chef, Big Rob Castellano. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Completing 10 years of service, 2 members of the housekeeping and maintenance staff, Ann Casey and Richard Congdon, and administrative assistant to the deans, Gina Tierney. Completing 15 years of service, college office assistant Tina Gomez, Rudd Learning Center tutor Marsha Ramuni, and maintenance technician John Randall. Completing 20 years of service to Salisbury School, chair of the art department Erica Crowfoot, director of athletics Timothy Sinclair, class of '91, Director of Information Technology, Peter Rafestanger, Business Office Associate, Julie Morrow, and the key man, Bob Holmes. Celebrating 35 years of service to Salisbury School. This is a stunning accomplishment because he doesn't look much more than 35 years old to me. Champion of the arts, boat builder extraordinaire, and rock climbing guru, Mr. Roger McKee, class of 1972. Thank you, Roger. And finally, and I'd like you to begin your walk up here, Mr. and Mrs. Magera, I'd like to recognize John and Joy Magera, who are retiring this year after 23 years of service to the school. John is our longtime business manager, and he's played a starring role in the transformation of the school over the last 2 decades plus. And Joy's work with students in both the academic office and the health center have made a defining impact on so many grateful boys. John and Joy, we love you. We will miss you desperately. Please come back and visit us often. And congratulations on your retirement. It is a privilege and an honor to introduce today's graduation speaker. Dan Kane is a nationally recognized leader in the healthcare finance field. Before founding Kane Brothers with his brother James in 1982, Mr. Kane was manager of the healthcare group at Solomon Brothers, and before that worked at Blythe Eastman Dillon. Mr. Kane left Solomon Brothers to start Kane Brothers, recognizing the unique regulatory and technology challenges confronting healthcare providers. This endeavor has been and continues to be a grand success. Mr. Kane is a member of the firm's executive committee, and he is also a frequent speaker at industry and academic conferences and an author of publications, including Capital Finance, which is an Aspen publication. He grew up in Holyoke, Massachusetts, is a graduate of Brown University with a degree in American Civilization, and earned his MBA from Columbia University Business School. Mr. Kane believes strongly in volunteer service and is a trustee of the American Heart Association, the Hancock Shaker Village, and Columbia Business School. Most notably, however, he is a member of the Board of Trustees at Salisbury School and best known as father to Billy Kane, class of 2015. I asked Mr. Kane to speak to us today because I am inspired by his story. Boys, you've heard me say time and time again that you can do anything you want in this life. You now have the gift of a Salisbury education, and you're about to head off to your undergraduate experiences. 4 years from now, you will all be exceptionally well educated. You heard me, right? 4 years from now, not 5, not 6. 4 years from now, you will all be exceptionally well educated. And you'll be armed with important core values to guide you and infinite opportunities from which to choose. At that moment, you will have been given much. And you will have earned much as well. But at that moment, it'll be time to spread your wings, to fly, to follow your dreams. You're probably wondering, where will I go? What will I do? That is up to you. But whatever you choose, I hope you will take with you what you've learned and seek to make a place for yourself in this world as Mr. Kane has, pursuing a career and perhaps creating a business that helps others, that makes the world a better place, a stronger place. Healthcare is something that is critically important to all of us, and Mr. Kane has sought to open doors for people to have access to the very best care. And in his free time, he has sought to help institutions that do good things for the world, places like Salisbury School. He is the quintessential servant leader. Perhaps former President Harry S. Truman's famous quote best sums up my friend Dan Kane. It's amazing what you can accomplish if you don't care who gets the credit. Dan is a truly remarkable man, and we are blessed to know him as a friend. It is with great pleasure that I introduce him as our graduation speaker.
I'm going to ask Chiz if he could record that and put it on on Facebook, because I don't think, other than my mother, anyone has ever said such kind things, certainly to my face. First, I'd like to thank Richard and Michael and the rest of the Board of Trustees, the faculty, for allowing me to become part of the Salisbury School community. I'd also like to extend a warm welcome, and I underline warm, to all those who have gathered today to honor the graduates of the class of 2015. As many of you know, being a commencement speaker carries with it magical powers. And throughout my presentation, I'm going to use those magical powers. The first one is to ask the class of 2015 to please stand up so we can give you a wonderful round of applause. Please, the class of 2015. They're getting warmed up now after that. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Thank you very much. Having the role as commencement speaker is the last formal teacher in front of the graduating class today. My responsibilities in addressing you today are twofold: to say something wise that reflects my advanced age, my experiences, or eliminate risks along the way as you embark on your next generation as college students. The second, and perhaps most important, is to stay within the time constraints allocated me. There was a Google test of all college commencement speakers, and the only way you could fail, no matter what you said, is if you went over the allocated time. So that, I am sure, will not happen today. If you look at a school like Salisbury, it's a traditional organization, as reflected just in the name that they give the senior class, the sixth form. And walking across the campus earlier this afternoon, this lady ran up to me and she said, you know, what are sixth forms? I said, well, in the real world, they're kind of called seniors. But our traditions go way back to the old English public schools, and we've adopted a lot of the traditions into our boarding schools. The second thing is that these traditions are passed down in your handbook, in other publications, but increasingly the passing on of those traditions is a word-of-mouth function. As the commencement speaker, I would like to bring your attention, class of 2015, to two really important components of commencement today. The first, and you won't read anything in the formal publications of Salisbury talking about tipping at commencement. But as you come up later on in this ceremony to receive your diploma from Headmaster Chandler, he's going to extend his hand, and you extend your hand, but have in your hand a folded up 10 or 20. You have to understand, Headmaster Chandler's got 4 little ones at home and a stay-at-home mom. So any of this can really kind of provide for a much more enjoyable summer for all of the Chandlers. The second insight that I'd like to share as your speaker is, and it's a little awkward to say, is a consideration for your commencement speaker today. It may sound self-serving to ask you to dig a little bit deeper as you provide an honorarium. Please don't call it a tip. An honorarium for this wonderful discussion dialogue I'm about to unfold. Now, as past commencement speakers have pointed out, this is not for us. This is to make sure that there's a steady stream of speakers well into the future. And to show how progressive past commencement speakers have been, it used to be that you could only show this, consideration in the form of cash or personal checks. About 10 years ago, they started to take American Express, and I'm happy to say that I'm going to start a new tradition, and we're going to take Bitcoins from here on in. So we're making it as painless as we can for all the families that constitute today's graduating class. I'm also going to break tradition in another form. Many of the past commencement speakers took the money, put it in their pocket, and left for New York or Boston or fancy places like that. I'm actually going to take this honorarium and give it back to the school. And it's going to be used for one purpose, and that is to bring a cell tower to the hill tower. I, as a parent, would like to see Salisbury come into the 21st century. And we are going to name this cell tower in the honor of the class of 2015. So again, you will be very famous and have every reason to come back to this campus. On a more serious note, when I started to do my homework in terms of past commencement speakers, I didn't want to make the mistake of repeating things that others have said before me. And I had to go all the way to the class of 2002 to find out that there was a duplication. And in 2002, the first commencement of the Salisbury School, my predecessor stood up to an august audience like this and said, "This is the best class ever." And in making that statement as the best class ever, he relied on one criteria, the math. He was 1 out of 1. I would like to fast forward to the class of 2015 and make the same statement, that this, the class of 2015, is the best class ever in the history of this school. And I want to base that on two things, evidence and a survey. And in the evidence bucket, it divides in two. There's the obvious and the not so obvious. Let me start for a moment on the obvious, the criteria for making you the best class ever. First, take a look at the athletic accomplishments this year. The number of championships won, the number of tournaments won, the interscholastic record of Salisbury versus all of its competitors. Take a look at the number in your class that have become all-stars in their respective sports. Think about the special moments that you've created on the gridirons and playing fields of the Salisbury School. Look at the Salisbury Theater with 7 Halo nominations, an extraordinary output for a group of boys who put on 3 productions during the academic year. Look at the Farm to Table program, where boys were out across the street to produce food to share with their community. This list of evidence goes on and on. Let's look for a moment in the not so obvious. Look at the letter of accommodation we got from American Red Cross because these boys decided on an afternoon to give their blood to their outstanding community. Think of all the volunteerism that takes place not only on the campus of Salisbury, but the community of Litchfield County. This is an extraordinary group of people who have touched all aspects of the quality of life of this campus. And to that, you should all be proud. Now, if you look outside the obvious evidence, there was a survey done. And the most acid test survey possible was going to the moms of this class and saying, are we all in agreement that this is the best class ever? And of all 17 moms interviewed, it was unanimous. Absolutely unanimous, but of course for 17 different reasons. Now, I think we've established the criteria for saying, why is this the best class ever? How did it get to be the best class ever? And I think many of you are familiar with the expression, success has many parents, failures are an orphan. I went out and started to survey the leadership of Salisbury, and starting with the admissions department, where's Peter out there, I said, what accounts for the extraordinary performance of this class? He said, well, that's an easy answer to give. First, it's all in the selection. Before they get to campus, we separate the wheat from the chaff. I then went to Tony Frankel, who many of you know, who's working diligently now preparing lunch as the chief chef of Salisbury School. He gave a very different answer. He said, what you eat is who you are. And he looked at the wonderful diet created day in and day out for these students and linked that to the success they have not only in the classroom, but the athletic field. I don't know why I'm getting dry up here. Anybody else getting dry out there? And then, one class of the class of 2015. And then thirdly, I walked over to the infirmary and I said, do you have any kind of impact on the class of 15? And the response was, of course we have an impact. It's all the TLC that we provide when the boys get a sniffle and are over here for a cure. So it's safe to say that there's a lot of people who have a vested interest in your organization. Just as I was about to leave the campus, I ran into Coach Phelps, who I think all of you know and admire as the head football coach here at Salisbury. And just for curiosity, I asked him exactly the same question. Why is the class of 2015 the best ever? And he turned around, and as only a coach can do, looking you straight in the face, he said, ask me that question in 20 years. Ask me that question when we see what they've done with the advantages of a Salisbury education and the ability to put those lessons to work. That was a fairly profound response for me, and as I drove back to our home in Cornwall, Connecticut, I picked up an old book by a neighbor of ours in Cornwall named Tom Brokaw. And many of you here know Tom Brokaw is the evening news commentator and an absolute iconic figure in the American social scene. He wrote a book called The Greatest Generation. And in that book, he tried to connect the dots between what our young soldiers did during World War II and how it affected their life thereafter when they came back and assumed their position in their respective communities. And he distilled those characteristics in three ways. He looked at the values, he looked at the character, and he looked at the discipline, the personal discipline of those individuals, and created the link between looking at them as young boys and seeing what they contributed to society as adults and mature individuals. And as I looked at the class of 2015, as all wise parents do, you turn for truth first to your teenage sons and daughters. In this case, I asked Billy exactly the same question. What accounts for the success and the values and the performance of the class of 2015? And he turned around and, after trying to avoid the question in the conversation for a good while, he said, Dad, it really kind of comes down to 4 pillars. 4 pillars is how I look at my Salisbury career. And those 4 pillars reflect spirituality, for those who are over in the chapel who got a good understanding of that through Reverend Hall. The rigorous academic program that's followed in classroom instruction. Third, the sportsmanship and competitiveness of the athletic environment. And last, and perhaps most importantly, is the social diversification which characterizes your school today. Chiz mentioned my brother, Jim, who I am in business with. And he went back recently to a graduation at his alma mater, Harvard University. And in that celebration was the lone member of the 75th reunion class, a gentleman by the name of Al Gordon, who was legendary for his performance on Wall Street. And they asked him through the school newspaper what was different between the Harvard he went to 75 years ago and the Harvard of today. And they specifically asked him about the issue of diversification. He thought about it, and he looked the reporter right in the eye and said, well, we define diversification quite differently than now. Diversification, when I went to Harvard, was where you vacationed for the summer. Other than that, there really wasn't any diversification in most of our schools, both secondary and college. Salisbury is preparing this graduating class in this community for the real world that's out there. A world that's comprised of the integration of all kinds of different cultures, religions, value systems, et cetera, And as you embark on careers, whether that's that of an entrepreneur or that of working for an international company, I think it's important to understand that the first really view you got about how different, but how much alike we are, started here in Salisbury. Let me conclude with the lesson that I learned my first semester in college many, many years ago. It was the Tuesday before Thanksgiving break, and in a course normally focused on European history, Professor Ward turned around, and rather than having a podium like this, which he used for his lecture, he had out there a flat table. And on that table were 4 utensils: a jar with a big open top and 3 bowls. And he turned around and he said, I want to convey one lesson, and one lesson for you to take home over the holidays. And that is the lesson of prioritization in life. He says, you probably have found from so far in college that knowledge, opportunities, information is like drinking from a hydrant. He said, that's not going to get any better unless you can somewhere or other prioritize where you put your time and energies. And as he lifted the jar, he said, this jar can represent your life, it can represent 1 year in college, or it can represent your full college career. He said, in these 3 bowls are 3 ingredients. The first is a pile of rocks. They're the most important thing in your life. They're your family, they're your health, they're the great causes that define your generation. He said in the second bowl, he says, are a whole bunch of pebbles. They're the things that give your life meaning. It may be elected president of your fraternity, it may be making the golf team, it may be becoming a vice president later on for your organization. He says in the third bowl, it's sand. The things that kind of clog your day-to-day existence. They're fun to do, they're enjoyable to do, but they don't really make any difference in the long term. And as he took all of these things out, he wanted to convey one lesson. And that lesson was, if you try and fill up your life, first with the sand and then with the pebbles, there's not going to be enough room for the important things in your life. If, on the other hand, you turn around and put the rocks in first and then the pebbles, shake it a bit, there's room for the sand. You can have it all if you set your priorities. Just as everybody thought the lecture was over, a voice from the past, a guy known as Sleepy O'Sullivan, kind of woke up in a bit of a daze, and he yelled down at Professor Dorr, "Is that all there is?" Professor Dorr looked up at him and he says, "What do you mean, is that all there is?" He said, "Well, there's got to be something more to this story than what you've just said." All of a sudden, Professor Dorr breaks out in this big grin. And as he reaches below the table, he takes a container and starts pouring that container into what everybody thought was a full jar. And it absorbed everything in that container. The student raised her hand and said, "What's that?" He said, "That, my friend, is kindness. Kindness is the most important thing to add to your life. Kindness to your family, kindness to your friends, and kindness to your community. That is the lesson to take home. Always make sure your jar is full of kindness." Thank you very much for your attention. I'm sorry if I ran over, and enjoy your festivities.
Thank you, Dan. I appreciate your words. It is an aged Salisbury tradition for the president of the Sixth Forum to address these proceedings, and I look forward to Duncan Morris's last official act in this role in a moment. However, before I ask Duncan to come up to the podium, I'd like to pause and thank him in front of his classmates, in front of the faculty, in front of his family, and all those who are present today for the work that he has done leading this class of 2015. Let me say first that Duncan Morris is a superb young man, a really, truly superb kid. However, his parents will tell you that this was not always true. They will tell you that he has come quite a distance these last few years. Listening to Molly and Bill Morris speak of their son reminds us all that the adolescent journey is arduous for nearly everyone. There are great moments, and there are moments that we'd like to forget. Sometimes simply surviving the adolescent journey is a huge victory, and I bet you my parents would say that about me. However, the Duncan Morris we know is a budding star, bright, accomplished, focused, and friendly, a great ambassador for Salisbury School. For the past 3 years, he has taken in all we have imparted and implored and has made the most of his Salisbury experience. This past year, Duncan was elected to serve his classmates and the school as the top student leader, and he embraced this role with creativity, excitement, and seriousness of purpose. Balancing individual pursuits, a rigorous course of study, and the responsibility of the health and welfare of over 300 young men is not an easy task, let me assure you. Nevertheless, Duncan has excelled on all fronts. So much so that I would like to deviate from the normal script and announce our first of our Leadership and Service Awards, which Duncan has most deservedly earned. The Headmaster's Award for School Leadership is given at the discretion of the headmaster to a member of the graduating class who demonstrates uncommon dedication to his schoolmates in service to the community. And on this day, I'd like to recognize Duncan's outstanding contributions. It is my pleasure to call him to the podium.
Good morning. I'd like to begin by taking this opportunity to ask my fellow classmates to take a look around. We're at our high school graduation, one of the most significant turning points in our lives. We've all heard our parents talk about their graduations and have noticed how they always seem to have fantasy-like descriptions in detail. I'm not saying this to try and doubt them. I'm saying this because I want to try to reiterate the fact that today is a big day. Today will be one to be remembered for the rest of our lives. This past year has truly been one of the most memorable, fulfilling years of my life. Last summer, I set out with School Vice President Ryan Phelps to make this year the best we possibly could, hoping to bring our class together and do everything in our power to make this school a better place. He's been everything we could ask for and so much more. His love for the school and his Sarum brothers is remarkable, and I'm thankful to have worked with someone so caring and so driven over the past 12 months. Furthermore, everyone in our community, I'd just like to recognize and thank the faculty and staff for being by our side over the course of this journey, because it's been an absolute pleasure to have worked with each and every one of you. Salisbury holds now and will forever hold a special place in my heart. And I'm sure the same is true for many in the audience today. There are so many memories that come to mind when I think of my Salisbury experience. I remember my first day on the hilltop. I pulled up with my parents to be greeted by Mr. Chandler, and coincidentally, my new advisor, Mr. Toad Smith. To this day, I have a vivid mental image of orientation my first year. I think everybody remembers the broken tug-of-war rope. A big, strong tug-of-war rope I literally watched be torn into two by Sadiq Olanruwaju and Tyler Fisher in a head-to-head battle. Does that really feel like 3 years ago? How about that first round playoff hockey game at Berkshire, our fourth form year? That was over 2 years ago. It's crazy how fast time flies. And believe me, I'm struggling to come to terms with it myself. Now, reflecting on my time here on the hilltop is easy, but looking ahead to what the future brings is a much more difficult thing to do. The reason for this is simple. The unknown is scary. We all like what we know, and it takes a lot to embrace the unknown. This school initially was a comparable experience. However, I think college is the first real test of our coping ability. It's a new chapter, the next stop on the road to adulthood. We're leaving a place that's been home, whether it's been for the past year, the past 4, or even 5. And it's a bittersweet feeling, isn't it? The thing I think we all need to find is the right balance between excitement for what's ahead and appreciation for what we've been through during our high school years. Salisbury's been a place that's allowed us to do things no other school could have offered. And I'm not talking about any special programs here. Salisbury's been a place where a boy can come in without a clue where he stands in the world and leave confident in who he is as a person. It's true that nothing in the world compares to the experience of being here. It's inevitable that there are going to be times where we wish we were somewhere else. But I think we're all in agreement now that it's come to an end, that we wouldn't have traded this experience for anything in the world. We've created unique bonds and friendships, and it's these connections that are going to last us a lifetime. Somewhere along the way, we've managed to find ourselves. Our brothers are here to make us better and to support us in all our endeavors. And this sense of community is something you don't find very often. I'm compelled to mention the importance of living in the moment. We've all had times here where we were just focusing on getting to the next step, from getting out of winter and into spring, or even getting to the next weekend when we get to go home. Having something to look forward to is good. It's what keeps us hungry to push on. But we can't let this take over. And today is as good a day as any to realize it. Our careers at Salisbury have come to an end. And though this may be the point we were all trying to get to, it's astonishing that it's nearly over. This realization is something that we can all use to our advantage. It can be a reminder for us to live every moment to the fullest and not focus on getting to the end result. Because next thing you know, you'll be wishing you could get back to where you were. Though I'm saying this towards the end of our journey at Salisbury, it's only the start of our journey for the rest of our lives. So let's cherish the time we spend with the people we like. Take advantage of it, because there will come a time when we wish we were with them again. I spoke of humility early in the year, and the words become a recurring theme in the chapel and classroom alike. It's a value that each and every one of us can benefit from. And it's one whose use varies and can be applicable in so many different ways. By being humble, we've been able to become closer as a community. The focus has shifted from what have I done to what have we done. And I can't be more grateful for what this has done for our relationships. We care for each other, not for ourselves. And this lesson translates into the real world with no hiccups. Learning how to care for others is a skill that will always have a place in society. And we've had the invaluable opportunity to practice this here on the hilltop. What I believe we've learned how to do is something bigger than simply learning in a classroom. Dealing and working with our classmates isn't necessarily a chore, because it seems as though all of us here are blessed with the ability to have compassion for those around us and be agreeable. We aren't simply guys who know advanced math and science. We're guys who've realized the part we must play in a community with others. Our eyes have been opened to the fact that being an accepting, caring, and friendly person is equally, if not more important, than being the guy who's read every book in the library. I talk to you all with a sense of ease, which isn't a coincidence. I'm comfortable with all of you, my Sarum brothers, because you're all good guys. I know just because they've gone to Salisbury that someone is a kind, genuine person. And I believe that every member of the class of 2015 fulfills this role without question. I couldn't be more proud to be standing in front of all of you. Every one of us has an unbelievably bright future ahead, and I know we're all eager to see what it holds. I just want to remind everybody what Salisbury has given us. Because amidst everything we've got going on right now, it can be hard to take in. We must take what we've learned and practiced here on the hilltop to our next destination. I'm confident that all of us will make a positive impact wherever we may go. And I want to thank you all for allowing me to be part of the ride. As English actor and novelist Tom Hiddleston put it, stay hungry, stay young, stay foolish, and above all, stay humble. Because just when you think you got all the answers, comes the moment when some bitter twist of fate of the universe reminds you that you very much don't. We've got a long, exciting road ahead, and there's no better time to start than right now. One last go, loud and proud. Carpe diem.
Vive!
Now I'd like to call Ryan Phelps up here to help us present this next award. So the sixth form medal is voted on by the entire graduating class and awarded to that faculty member which has had the greatest influence on the class over the course of their time here. And on behalf of the class of 2015, we'd like to recognize Mr. Brian Finney and invite him up here to accept this award.
Thanks, guys.
Well done, boys. I'd now like to ask Assistant Headmaster Bobby Wynn to help me with the distribution of the rest of the Service and Leadership Awards.
Good morning. It is now my honor and pleasure to announce this year's winners of Salisbury's Leadership and Service Awards. The first award is the Richard Fromberg Award. In honor of Richard Fromberg, class of 1984, this award is determined by the vote of the faculty to a sixth former who has overcome extraordinary adversity. The winner of the Richard Fromberg Award is Trent Meadows Carpenter. The Leland Rhodes Fellowship Award, given by the Rhodes family in memory of their son, Leland, of the class of 1986. Leland's love of the outdoors was exemplary, and this award is for character that transcends many recognized standards. The winner of this year's award is Ambrose Witherspoon Gibbons. The Reverend Edwin M. Ward Prize, established by the faculty in 1990, is awarded by vote of the faculty to that student who exemplifies the spirit of quiet and dedicated service to others, which is characterized by Salisbury's fourth headmaster, the Reverend Edwin Ward. This year's award winner is Spencer Edward Daniel. Crosby Medal. Given in memory of Robert Southgate Brown Crosby by Arthur N. Sewell, is awarded by vote of the 5th and 6th forms to that sixth former or six formers who have rendered the greatest service to the school. This year's Crosby Medal Award winners are Ryan Michael Phelps and Robert Davis Seebeck. The Quayle Medal. Given in memory of founding headmaster and his wife, the Reverend Dr. and Mrs. George E. Quayle, and second headmaster, Reverend Emerson B. Quayle, is awarded by vote of the faculty to that member of the graduating class who has shown the most satisfactory development during his Salisbury years. The Quayle Medal this year goes to William Thomas. The Founders Medal. Established by Salisbury's founding headmaster, the Reverend Dr. George E. Quayle, is awarded by vote of the faculty to that student who has rendered the greatest service to the school in leadership and loyalty. The Founders Medal this year goes to Charles Carroll Cross. The Headmaster's Medal. The Headmaster's Medal is awarded to the first scholar of the sixth form. The winner of this year's Headmaster Medal is Mingyu Shin.
Congratulations, boys. And now is the time. Fix your ties, put your sport coats on, look sharp. I'd love it if you take your sunglasses off when you come up for your diploma. Your mom wants that great picture of you. Brian's here ready to take your photo. We ready to go? I'd like to invite Chairman of our board, Mr. Michael Sylvester, to help me distribute the diplomas for the class of 2015.